Plaintiff Danny Lansdowne is suing his ex-girlfriend, Misty St. Lawrence, for child support for their 12-year-old daughter. Danny says he wants full custody of their daughter because she was molested while in the defendant's care. Misty admits to having a violent relationship with her daughter because of what her daughter has experienced in the past, but she says the plaintiff is the one who owes her child support.
Danny Lansdowne is suing Misty St. Lawrence, his ex-girlfriend, for child support and court costs. How are you today?
I'm doing fine today.
All right, Danny, tell us why you're here today.
I'm suing Misty for child support that I paid while I had custody of my daughter.
Okay, how old is your daughter?
She's 12, getting ready to turn 13 in February.
Mm-hmm. And is there a custody and support order? Who's got custody?
Misty has custody, and I pay her child support, but I had custody for 5 months during last summer, and I paid child support during that time frame that I didn't feel that she was entitled to.
And so how much are you suing for?
It's little over $1,900, $1,970.
And the court that you went to for child support and the child support, for custody and the child support order directed that you pay how much?
$194 a month.
Okay. And then in terms of custody, how is it broken down? Who is to have your daughter?
Misty has full-time custody of her, residential custody, and I get her during the summer, every other weekend, and Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, and is the custody order, does it say that Danielle will visit her father during the time that he says?
Yes, he has custody for 6 weeks.
And was there any arrangement that during the 6 weeks that he has custody that he would not have to pay child support?
No, I actually pay child support during that summer visitation.
Okay, and that's what the court order says?
Yes.
Okay.
Defendant Misty St. Lawrence maintains that the plaintiff is the one who owes her child support.
Tell me about Danielle.
Danielle is 12 years old. She's very vibrant, outgoing. She loves to spend time with her father. And just a typical teenage little girl who loves to be on the phone, cause problems.
Is there any issue as to where she wants to live?
She's kind of torn right now. She's reached a point where on one hand she wants to live with her mother, but on the other hand she wants to live with me. She doesn't want to make her mom feel bad by that, but I've reached a point where I want her to live with me. She's been with her mother for several years now, and I feel it's my turn to have her full time and let her go back and forth to her mother's like she's been doing with me for the last 4 or 5 years.
What makes you think she'd be better off living with you?
Well, there's problems in Misty's household. Her and Misty don't always get along. They do have problems on occasions. They argue. Danielle is defiant with her on occasion. She has some problems at school and things of that nature.
What kind of problems at school?
Well, I don't know the extent of all the problems because up until a year ago, I literally had to interject myself into the school system and introduce myself to the principals and the teachers and let them know that I was there before they started telling me some of the problems that she was having at school. She'd do things like she got a hold of a cell phone and took it to school and got in trouble for it, being defiant with the teachers, speaking when they tell her not to, things of that nature, getting in trouble.
And when she would get into trouble, would you reprimand her? Would you reprimand her? I mean, how did it work?
Well, up until a year ago, I didn't know anything about any of it unless Danielle came to me and told me. And it just finally reached a point where I had to go to the school and say, hey, I'm her father, I'm here, if you're having problems.
Well, you should do that anyway, shouldn't you?
Yes.
Okay. And other than cell phones and talking back to the teachers, any other problems, any behavioral problems?
Well, there's been a couple of occasions where Misty and Danielle has gotten into arguments, and Danielle has actually left the house, ran out at 8, 9 o'clock at night and called me, and I've had to go get her.
True?
True. We have been getting in a lot of arguments. She's becoming a typical teenage little girl. Very moody, very argumentative. It gets to the point where she's standing 2 feet from me, arguing in my face. I have yelled back at her. I have hit her and everything. That's when she goes to her father's because I feel threatened that she's going to hit me at any time.
Has she ever hit you?
No, she has doubled up her fist.
Don't you think it's unusual to hit a 12, 13-year-old girl?
Yes, I do.
So why'd you do it?
because I felt threatened by her because she has doubled up her fist. She is twice my size.
And what's the relationship between the two of you?
Between Misty and I, or Danielle?
Between you and Misty?
Basically, at this point, we communicate somewhat, but not very much. So the lines of communication while she was married were basically cut because of the husband, I feel. Once they separated, then the lines of communication started opening up. So I knew more about what was going on in the household.
And what was your new husband? Was it your second husband?
It was my first husband.
Did you have any reason to believe that your daughter wasn't being cared for by Misty and her first husband?
There were some behavior problems here a few years back, and I knew that there were some kind of issues going on in the household. And it took me almost a year and a half to get Danielle to finally open up to me and tell me what was going on. And it wasn't what was going on in her household so much as what was going on elsewhere.
And what did she tell you?
Basically that her step-grandfather had been touching her inappropriately and things of that nature. And when I found that out, I went to the appropriate state agencies, and that man was basically immediately locked up, and he's been in prison ever since then.
He's in prison for what he did to Danielle?
Yes.
Well, maybe that explains some of the behavioral problems.
It does.
Yes.
What? Talk to me about Danielle being with your first husband's father.
Correct.
When would she be alone with him?
She was only alone with him a couple occasions. My older son had been with him several times. She had asked plenty of times to go stay at Grandpa's house. I didn't find anything wrong with that. She'd come home, she'd act like a typical...
Was there a grandma there or just Grandpa?
Just Grandpa.
So how old was she when she was molested?
10.
So you let a 10-year-old stay with a grandpa without a grandmother in the house?
Yes.
Do you think that's a little unusual?
No, because he usually has the grandchildren. He likes to spend time with each of the grandkids.
I'll bet he does. He's in jail for molesting her.
At that time, we did not know that.
Okay, so if she clearly was a victim of your ex, is he still your husband?
He's still my husband, but we're separated.
Okay, with her grandfather.
Step-grandfather.
Step-grandfather.
Yes.
Okay. If there were behavioral problems when she came back from visits, I mean, and if there was molestation, there should have been some exhibiting behavior that indicated that there was a problem. Were you looking?
She showed no signs because she would ask after the visitation if she could go back to Grandpa's.
Do you know that to be the case, Danny?
In my opinion, she was showing signs from the beginning. The behavior problem started at my house almost a year and a half before I actually found out what was going on. And I knew that there was something going on. It just took quite a while for me to get her to finally open up to me.
Is Danielle in therapy now?
She was in therapy through Moxa. Her counselor had quit. They had to find a new counselor. When they did find a new counselor, Danny requested that I do not put her in therapy until the end of the summer so he could help out with the therapy.
Is that true?
Well, we had a discussion about it, and I asked Misty to give me this. At this point, she brought Danielle to me and said, "I want you to take her for the summer." I at no point thought that I was going to solve all the problems, but I thought that I could at least get somewhat of a handle on it, and then if there's still more problems, then we need to get her into therapy. But she basically makes it out like I said, no, don't put her in therapy, and that's really not what it was about.
Did she actually testify?
No, she did not.
And how long is he in prison for, do you know?
10 years.
10 years. So we're talking about serious molestation. We're talking about repeated, continual molestation of a 10-year-old.
Yes.
He actually...
sorry.
Go ahead.
He testified that he did do it. He agreed that he did touch her.
So to me, if a guy is admitting that he is a pedophile and molesting his own step-granddaughter and ready to admit it so quickly, that means there are a lot of other kids along the way. Correct. And if there are any other little girls that you know of, I would recommend, and I don't know how expanded your family is, that these girls be spoken to.
We have done that.
You have done that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What do you want to tell me?
Well, basically, I asked Danny to take Danielle for the summer, including his 6 weeks of visitation, because we were arguing on a daily basis. It had gotten violent. She had ran away from home.
On your part, it got violent. She never hit you.
She got violent too. She threw things, broke things, and everything. I asked him to take her so things at our house could calm down and we could start communicating on a different level and everything. He agreed. He had her for a total of 16 weeks, which is 6 weeks is his.
So he had her 10 weeks longer than the court allowed him to have her.
Correct.
And you had no problem with that?
I had no problem.
Why shouldn't he
with that.
get some kind of credit in child support for the extended period of time that he had her?
I'm not saying I don't owe him. I do not owe him $2,000.
What do you think you owe him?
I think I owe him $509.
So that if it's $194 for a month?
Per month, yes.
Per month. And so we're talking about 2 extra months and then half of the month. So it's about $488. And you think it's $2,000?
Well, what I was looking at was 5 months worth of child support and that I paid while I had custody.
Right.
And because in the process of this, I'm being prosecuted by Clay County for failure to pay my child support. There was 4 months at the end of 07 that I didn't pay, was when I ended my relationship with my girlfriend. I had to find a new home. I had a 4-year-old to take care of, so I missed 4 months worth of payments.
So what are you suing for?
Countersuing for his back child support.
All right. All right. Go ahead.
Which is $2,418 that he is behind.
All right, but he's being prosecuted for that, isn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So why are you suing for it if the authorities are prosecuting him for back child support?
Because he is suing me. So I'm just countersuing
Oh, because he's suing you. Okay. All right. Well, I got a tidbit for you. He's being sued for it. You can't sue for it and get yourself a windfall. It's the state that's suing him for it. Okay? And then the state will end up giving you the money.
He has been behind on child support since the very first time.
It's not that I'm refusing to pay her, it's that I just haven't got caught up yet.
All right, look, this is a very simple issue. It's undisputed that the parties have a child together. It is undisputed that the plaintiff is behind in child support payments. What we have here is the defendant, the plaintiff is suing for an abatement in his child support, meaning I had the child, Danielle, longer than I was supposed to, and therefore I should have some credit owed to me given the fact that I'm paying child support to her while I'm feeding, clothing, and caring for the child. The defendant, on the other hand, is saying, hey, wait a minute, you owe child support to the state. I want that money. No. He's being sued for it, and sooner or later he's going to have to pay the state. That's not going anywhere. And in terms of the jurisdiction, this court does not have jurisdiction. This goes back to the court of original jurisdiction that set the child support amount, and the plaintiff will be sued for that. But you know what? The issue is bigger for me. The issue has to do with a 10-year-old girl who has behavioral changes that the father is seeing and you're not seeing. You're telling me she's putting her fists up to you, she's throwing things at the wall. Those behavioral changes are indicative of child sexual abuse. If you notice tremendous changes in a child, you have an obligation to look at that child, and the step-grandfather that you were sending her to is molesting her to the point where he's admitting it. He's in jail for 10 years. The bottom line is that both of you have to go back to the court of original jurisdiction. But you know what? I feel for the plaintiff. I think the plaintiff has identified issues that you as a mother were not capable and not interested in identifying. And therefore, I am going to award him on an equity basis, having nothing to do with what ultimately will happen in the child support court. I'm going to order that you get $500 for the additional weeks that you had Danielle. So ordered. Thank you.